Hey y'all, welcome to Fountain City Church's weekly sermon. Here at Fountain City, we believe in multiplying families of missional disciples both locally and globally, and we really hope that this sermon encourages you to do the same. If you live in the area, make sure to join us on a Sunday. Thanks for watching.
If you are new to our church, or if you've been here a long time, we hope that you know that we are a group of people who believe in having families of missional disciples, who come together, who go to the nations, who see God move here in Columbus, Georgia. In Matthew 28, it says, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations." We believe in being missional. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And so we believe in creating disciples, and we believe in creating family environments, and we also believe in going to the world, to the nation, so that the Lord is known. And so we're excited to hear about this group share about Africa. We're excited to hear what they've done. And so if you don't know, Pastor Grant and Pastor Daniel are in Albania right now with the team. They left a couple days ago and they're serving there. And so Cami and I went to Japan just a few weeks ago, and now we have this team fresh off the plane from Africa. And so we're excited just to hear about their trip. So before we get started, right, what did they do? Where did they go? How long were they there for? We just want to kind of get an overview. So Emily, will you share with us a little bit about just kind of what you guys did so we kind of have a context moving forward?
Yeah, so we were in Africa for almost 2 weeks. It was about 12 days that we were gone. And we worked with a ministry called Reaching a Generation. And they are based in South Africa, but they have ministries in several different parts of Africa. So we started out in South Africa. You saw a lot of pictures from there. And so we were staying at Reaching a Generation's base called Shikwaru. And we got to partner with a local church that they've planted in a city called Mokopane. And so a lot of the pictures from that first part were us working with the church. So we got to be part of the youth ministry one night and got to lead parts of the children's ministry that Sunday that we were there. And so that was a really cool way to see more of like ministry in an urban setting and an established church. And then we loaded up a van and drove to Zambia. So we drove through Botswana. Altogether, it was like a 14-hour drive. But we stayed the night in Botswana. We slept in tents. It's their winter, so it was very cold. But we got to sleep in tents with wild elephants walking right by us. You saw we were right by a watering hole. So those were wild. And then we loaded up the car again and drove the rest of the way to Zambia, where we really hit the ground running. And it's very different from South Africa, a lot more rural. We were driving into the bush, which is Africa's wilderness, off-road into these villages where we did children's ministry. We had a program where we each had like a different part, just sharing the love of Jesus with them. We also... Reaching a Generation has a ministry where they dig wells in these remote villages. And so we got to be part of that and see a lot of the wells that they've already installed. And then we got to be there for the installation of another one. We also partnered with a ministry called J-Zone. So they were the ones that were bringing us into the schools and into the villages. J stands for Jesus. And... they had a women's ministry that we got to partner with too. We brought things to give to the children and to the women. Yeah, it's a life-changing experience. Am I missing anything? Okay.
I will add, though, that when we were in those tents...
You need it.
Okay, I will add that a little funny side note. When we were in those tents, we finally got to sleep. It was... probably 29, 30 degrees. It was freezing. And everybody finally got to sleep, and it was funny because all four of our tents were right next to each other, and you hearing all the different people snoring. Well, at about 2 a.m., either a leopard or a lion came right behind our tent and growled. And it was funny to hear all the snoring. And you heard everybody sit up. And then I went into daddy zone. I was like, oh my Lord, I'm fixing to have to tell a parent that a leopard took their child. So I'm like, okay, I got to go outside. So I went outside, and thank God it was gone, but there was an elephant standing about 5 foot from me, and I was like, okay, back in the tent.
Wow, yeah. Thank you for that overview and sharing that fun story. So in talking through your trip and your experiences, some of you shared like an impactful moment you had in your time in Africa. Would some of you mind sharing that?
Hey, I'm Josh. I went on the trip. So, like, before I went, I thought, like, the most impactful thing was going to be, like, what you normally think, like, seeing how they live and the difference and all of that. But for me, it was just, like, lessons that sounds very elementary and simple, but when, like, God shows it to you, it's huge. So, like, I don't know, I've been up here before talking about, like, anxiety and lack of sleep and all that, so I was going through that, and everyone was, noticing it and, like, saying, stay, because if you go, you're out there. Like, you can't, like, we can't just run you back to the hotel. Like, you're going to be stuck out there, so just stay, make sure you rest, get back to normal. But like, sorry. I decided to go because, like, I pray all the time, like, make me a man of God. But you don't really realize what you're praying for. And God, one night before the next day, was like, you got to realize what you're praying for. Like, you don't just pray to be God and then it's like magic and you wake up and you're a godly man. Like, this is hard. Like, you're asking for a hard thing. So it sounds like super simple, but to me it was just like the most impactful because it was like super personal. Like, I was just like laying in a room. I thought like I was going to be impacted the most when like I was out with the kids and all that kind of stuff, but like just that one-on-one. Ugh. I hate this part. Jeez, I just want to talk. But yeah, so that was like, it was huge because like the next most impactful thing was, I had zero sleep and like we got in the van and I was just like this the whole way there. But when you get there, I had all the energy I needed. So like, again, simple but huge for me was like, if you do try, I'll take care of what you need. Not everything that you want, but I'll give you what you need. And I'll teach you the difference between the two, is between the wants and the needs. And I'll give you your needs. So I would say that's probably the most impactful.
I'll answer that too. Mine's kind of a 2-in-1. The first school that we went to in Zambia, as soon as we got out of the vans, the kids like ran to us and hugged all of us. And we found out that this school was actually started by a woman in the village who looked around and saw that kids weren't going to school. And so she opened up her home and said that she would teach them. And so that was amazing to see. I'm a teacher, and Lindy, the teacher in education. And so to see this woman who had nothing, like say, I'm going to use what I do have and teach these kids. And so that was powerful. We got to see her school and pray with her. She was an amazing lady. And I just love doing the children's ministry with the kids there. And then we did like a whole week of ministry in Zambia, and the last day that we were there, we went to a park and with J-Zone, and as soon as we opened up the van, these kids were trying to get in the van to hug us. And they were like tackling us, and I had like 3 kids hugging me, and I look at them, I say, I know you. And it was the kids from the first school we went to. And so we got to see them again, and we were there for 2 hours. We did a lesson about joy with them. And playing with those kids and picking them up, spinning them around, I was dancing with them, just loving on them, and I felt a part of my heart come alive. And for a long time before this trip, I hadn't felt like myself. And I don't know why, but on this trip, like that part of me that wasn't there came alive again. And I was filled with so much joy, which was cool because the lesson was about joy. But it was also just confirmation of my calling in my life. I am a teacher, and I love kids. And I just felt like the Lord like ignited that in me again.
Thank you for sharing. That was really good. Y'all also had another member on the team, Anna Carroll. She is in, remind me where she's at? Boston. I almost said New York City, but Boston. She is, yeah, basically. She made some videos just sharing some of her impactful moments from the trip. So if we can cue that, we're going to see Anna's experience.
Hello, Fountain City family. I am Anna. I'm not able to join today as I live in Boston, but I was able to go on the Africa mission trip with the team, and so I'm coming and bringing some feedback via video. So one of the questions is, what was the most impactful moment for you on the trip? For me, it would definitely be the days in Zambia that we went into the villages. There was one specific day we got to see one of the first water wells that was planted in that village, and we got to see a family come up and just show us their excitement and love and gratitude for having that water well. We were supposed to watch an installation of another water well in the village that day, but God had other plans, and we were missing a part, so we kind of had to wait for a team to go get that missing part, and we just kind of had to figure out what to do ministry-wise. So the Zambia team, J-Zone, they decided that we would do a little bit of evangelism in the villages, and we broke into small groups. I was with Brannon, and we were with 2 other Zambian team members. One of them was a translator. So we got to go around and talk with other village people in their homes, just sit with them. And in one scenario, we were sitting, we had just finished praying for this mother, and this taller boy came up. He was probably like upper 20s, maybe really early 30s, and you could just tell the heaviness that was weighing on his heart. And he said he believed in God. I don't know really the extent of his relationship with Jesus, but you could tell that he knew we were there to help him, to provide help, and he came up to us and he was just so honest with the hurt that he was feeling, and he told us that he was battling with addiction with alcohol, and he wanted freedom for that. My personal walk with the Lord, a lot of the Fountain City family know, but my dad has been in and out of rehab a few times in my life, and I have just watched him struggle with that. It's a part of my testimony, and just seeing the effects of alcohol and how heavy it is on life and how heavy addictions are on life, to see this man come up and openly ask for forgiveness and healing and freedom was just like a miracle moment. And getting to pray for him and, just partner with him and get to know him as a friend and ask him about those challenges and then pray for healing and chains broken. That was just a really impactful moment of just seeing somebody that has little to nothing, but that is still struggling with the same struggles that, my father struggles with, was just really impactful to be able to pray for him in that moment. Hello, Fountain City family.
Awesome. Some of you just shared ways that you saw God moving, and so would a few of you just answer ways that you saw the Lord move while you were in Africa?
Hi. I was so excited to go on this trip. I don't know if anybody knew that about me before I left. To experience the Lord in a different way. And so we're on the other side of the world. We called it like our Africa bubble. Like it was totally a bubble with our team of 6 and then Rolene, so our team of 7. And being able to see the impact of the Lord in a completely different situation, whether it be nobody around and you're just looking at God's creation, or these animals, or these children who have no electricity, no running water that they walk miles to get, no beds, they literally sleep on the ground. And I did not hear one complaint the entire time. Like, no one. And we're here, like, inconvenienced because I can't find a Netflix show I want to watch on my comfy sofa with my air conditioning. And, like, just the impact that the Lord is there. Like, it sounds so simple, like, you just need the Lord. But, like, how often can we say, like, I just need the Lord and that's all I need in my life? And the smiling faces when we went into one of the villages, we were the first visitors they've ever had. Like an hour in the back of a pickup truck to get to this village. We're the first strangers that have come into their village. And they greet us with a smile on their face and praising the Lord. How magnificent is that? Like, to be able to fathom, like, that excitement, but he's moving and he's making a way because they have the Lord. Well, not everyone, that's why we're going, but, like, to be able to embrace that, and that's enough. And is that enough in our life? So, that was my impactful moment, or whatever.
So I'm going to add to a couple things that a couple of people have said, and then I'll tell you an impactful moment for me. Anna talked about the gentleman that came up to be prayed for. Well, when we laid hands on him, he was so tight. He was bound up so tight. And after we prayed for him, I had my arms around him and literally felt him relax. He just like, you could feel Jesus wrap his arms around him. And then Josh talked about him not sleeping. I was in the room with him, so I can attest to that. He did not sleep. And for God to give him the strength to get on that band every morning and go into the heat of the day. And if you guys could see some of the videos of Josh playing the guitar and singing and dancing and all that stuff with the kids, you would be amazed knowing that he didn't sleep at night. And then my impactful moment, there was a lot of them. After we prayed with the gentleman, we went to another house, and there was a man and 2 women sitting on the front porch. Each woman had a kid in front of them. And we walked up, and we asked, could we sit with you for a few minutes? We have an interpreter, of course. And they were like, sure. They were in the middle of cooking their lunch, which is the same thing they have for breakfast and dinner, which is this stuff called pap. And it's like a grit. And they put it in a pot over a burning fire. They pour it in, and they make just enough for them to eat. It makes into this, like grits, kind of hard grits, and that's all they eat, which is a sad thing in itself. But I asked them if they knew Jesus, and he said, he spoke for the family. He said, I've heard the name before, but I don't know who he is. So I asked him if I could explain to him who Jesus was. And he said, sure. So through interpretation, which of course took a while, I explained to him who Jesus was, exactly who he was. And I saw him start his countenance started to change. And I said, do you realize what Jesus can do for you? And I went through that and explained it to him. And then I asked him, would you like to receive Jesus in your life? He stood up and raised his hands. Yes, I would. But when he did that, the two women that were sitting on the other side of the porch got up and walked over too. They were listening the whole time. So they raised their hands, and we were able to pray for salvation for all three. And I mean, just thinking of that, just thinking of this, we were out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like, we drove way off road back to these little straw hut villages. And to be able to take Jesus into those villages, just absolutely amazing. To be able to share Jesus with them. And another thing that impacts me, and I've been doing this for years, it impacts me to watch each member. I watch them. They don't know I'm watching them. But I watch them and I wait for that moment. And I can always tell when that moment is, when reality hits. Wow. You know, Anna, after we prayed for that young man, she just broke down, and she didn't share this, but she just broke down and sobbed, you know. And to see each individual person ministered to is my impactful moment. It's what means the most to me.
Yeah, that's so good. So what are some challenging moments y'all faced, and how were you able to overcome, or how did the Lord meet you in those moments?
Guess it's my turn. Hi, I don't think most of y'all know me. I'm Kelly. I actually was not a super active member of this church before I went on this trip. My brother was like, hey, they're going on this trip and it sounds like something you would enjoy. And so that's how I ended up with them, and it was life-changing. One challenge I had was, like I said, I'm pretty quiet. So in South Africa, I was able to just hide in the background and, I've got to tell these kids this memory verse. I can do that, and I've got Anna with me, so I don't have to do it by myself. But we made this program to tell them about love, and we were making the program, and I was like, I don't know what part I want to do, all these different things. So I'm sitting there waiting for them to tell me which part I'm going to do. And we get to the end, and they're like, well, Kelly, you're the last one. You don't have anything. Do you want to pray for salvation? And I'm like, oh, Lord, no, I don't. But there was, that was the inside. The outside was like, sure, I'll do it. Yeah, sounds good to me. So this whole time we're going to practice it, and Brandon's going to be like, hey kids, how's it going? And I'm the whole time I'm I don't know what I'm going to do, guys. Do I have this in me to pray for these kids? And so, we go and we're practicing the whole in South Africa, and we practice on the bus, and we get there and I'm oh gosh. And Rolene, the person that was with us, she was basically our tour guide. She told me after, she was tell them 3 things: to read their Bible, to pray to God, and to tell a friend. And so it's my turn, and I fumble, but luckily there's a translator, so he made it sound eloquent. And I, do what I'm supposed to do, and then I walk off the stage, or I walk off where I'm talking, and Lindy goes, and guys, this is what you need to do. And so it definitely was a challenge for me to step out in the rural areas with the villages and with the kids, and be able to talk to them and be like, God's here for you, I have him, you have him potentially, but just through one single prayer, you can have him in your life, and it'd be amazing. So it was pretty cool. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, I'll speak about challenges too. I've been on several mission trips in my life, and I'd been to South Africa before, but this was my first time going to Zambia. And I was anxious before we went, just because I knew it was going to be so different. And so it was just one of the challenges we all faced was just being willing to be uncomfortable. I think Lindy touched on it a little bit, but there's no power in the mornings because they do something called load shedding. And so from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., no power. And so we're taking showers in the dark, getting breakfast in the dark, getting dressed in the dark. And so that was just a new experience, stepping out of your comfort zone, being willing to use toilets that are holes in the ground. And so another challenge I had was I didn't sleep much either. And I don't really know why, but the Lord gave me energy for each day. There were moments where I still broke down and cried because I can't sleep, but he was there with me. Yeah.
I believe we also have another video from Anna on this question.
Okay, so another question, the testimony of how you saw God move. I personally saw God move in various different ways, of course. There was one beautiful moment where, and I'm sure some of the other team members might have shared this or are going to share this, but one day we were lucky enough, blessed, to drive 10 miles into the bush of Africa. It ended up being like an hour car ride, and 3 of us had to sit in the bed of a truck, with like dust and trees, everything flying. It was like a real Africa adventure. But we got to this village site, and we learned that we were the first visitors ever within this village to just come and minister to these people. And we were greeted with love, we were greeted with song, we were greeted with their culture. And God was so evident in that moment, just seeing 2 cultures, 2 families not even knowing each other and just being so embraced with the love of God was such an impactful, God moment. And then also a way that I saw God move was within our team. I did not know anybody besides Emily going on this trip, and I think for the few of us as well, it was new relationships. A lot of us didn't really know each other, heart to heart wise. And being able to connect and form a family bond with this team was just another way that God was moving. He was bringing us closer together. He was breaking down our walls. He was shaping us in a unique way to effectively share the gospel as well. And I don't think that's it's hard to do if you're not vulnerable with each other, and I feel like God allowed us to be vulnerable with one another and bring us closer together, and that was another way that I saw God move. Okay.
Awesome. Joshua, do you have something you wanted to share, bro? Yeah, please.
God movement?
Yeah. We'd love to hear it.
So, another thing, I already said this, you go over these, expectations, these movie moments that you see in movies and stuff like that. But, what I learned was, and, to touch on, what they were talking about, we went to one village, and, we were their first visitors ever, and I'm I'm white, so, I knew that, some of them were, literally looking at you like you're a ghost, but as you get there, you feel God take over, and, it's weird to describe, because it's not these kids don't just, fall down on their knees and throw their hands up and stuff like that. It's more of you just feel God whispering, I care about you. Yeah. So that's kind of how I saw him move. It just gentle, not this massive miracle, just this gentleness that like a genuine love and care that he was showing these kids, because it had nothing to do with what we were doing, because we were botching it up left and right. Like, but he took over, and all he needed was us just to put it out there, and then he took it from there. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So good. So now what? You've had this incredible experience. It seems to have marked you all in a pretty significant way. So what does it kind of look like to bring Africa home? Or if people go on one of these trips in the future, we don't just want to be a church that creates a lot of cool experiences or Instagrammable moments, right? We want it to impact the world. We want it to impact Columbus, Georgia. We want it to impact our family and our friendships. So what does it look like to really bring this experience home?
It's my turn again. Well, it was a very unique experience for me, and to be able to just like come back was totally different, but I don't know where I was going there. So while we were there working with the J Zone and J Kids, we would have like dinner with the people. There was a couple from America, and so we definitely bonded with them a lot, or at least I did. And like the founder of J Zone and stuff would come and eat dinner with us the last couple nights. And so for some reason I was in like the middle, where I had, my people, and then I had these people that I kind of didn't know. And so I was talking to them and like finding out more about like what they do, outside of what we did. And so Brooke, one of the Americans, shared the heart of one of the people that works at J Zone, and saying that she wants to start like doing counseling in Africa or Zambia, and doing all these different things, and she needs someone to spearhead it with her. And I was sharing with them like what I do in Columbus, and what I, different things that I'm involved with in my heart for what I want to do. And they're like, "You sound like someone that's like perfect for this job." like, are you interested? And I'm like, that's a deep question. So I didn't really know how to answer, and like it wasn't worded like, "Hey, come back to Africa," but like we like all were talking later over Uno No Mercy, which was the best game ever. We played every night. But they were like, I don't remember, it was Lindy or Anna or something. They're like, "Did you just get a job offer?" I was like, "I think I might have." And so, I've always known my heart was for missions, and my heart was to move somewhere else, and, go and do missions, I don't know, somewhere else. I don't know how else to explain it, but I ended up coming home, and I was informed that the person that I was working for could no longer pay for me to work for them. So I lost my job. I have this amazing opportunity to go back to Africa, and I'm like, "Lord, what are you telling me? Am I supposed to go back? Like, what? I love it's comfy here." So, yeah, I think for me, bringing Africa home would be, right now I'm doing a whole bunch of praying, and like, am I supposed to go back? Am I supposed to spearhead this counseling movement with her? Like, what all is gonna take place? So.
And I'm the other one for this one. What now? So you go on this life-changing trip. You spend 13 days with a new family, because that's what they are now. They're our new family. And you experience every emotion possible, every experience with the Lord possible in a 13-day period. Highs, lows, and everything in between. Then you come home, back to your real world. And what do you do with that? Like, I joked about the Africa bubble. Like, we were in like a little bubble. But that's not reality. Like, reality is what we experienced there. It wasn't a 13-day trip. Like, it was 13 days in country but not the months leading up to it, the months after it, like how it changes our heart. And I knew I was meant to go on the trip, and I didn't know why. And I still don't know why. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going on this trip. Like, I'm going to go, like, have the answers. Like, clearly the Lord was like, you need to go. Everything was funded. Like, it was a miracle. It was, like, how it worked out. I was like, so he wants me here. And so I'm like, he's going to give me all the answers, right? Like, that's how it works. Like, I'm listening. I went on this trip. Okay, so while I was over there, fabulous, amazing. Like, these words aren't doing it justice. But I'm like, I'm waiting on like the red flashing sign because I'm that person. Like, I'm a little slow sometimes, so I need like the, hello, here's your answer. And I'm like, okay, it'll be ready when I get back. Not there. So like, it's a thing that's like, it's a process. It's not something, for me at least, like the Lord hasn't let me in on the whole plan. Like, he's like baby stepping it. And that's probably because that's all I can handle, because I'd flip out if he was like, oh, by the way, here's what's going to happen. So with that being said, like learning how to be missionally minded and learning how to do that on a daily basis. Like the people we came into contact with and our team even, like getting to where, am I praying for them every day? Like that should be a given. But like how often are we going through a day, an hour, 10 days, whatever it is, that you don't think to pray for these people around us? Like, the Lord has blessed us all fabulously, but the Lord is still just as good if he hadn't given us everything he's given us. He is just as good to those people who live in the mud huts who don't have anything else. And realizing that that's the case, and like, he has blessed me beyond measures, and I do have a house, and I do have friends and family sitting around me, and with a church who sends people to the world. But what are we doing with that? Like, and this is me, I don't know if it's you, like, I've got to put my money where my mouth is. I've got to put my prayer life where this is too. Because just going on this one thing and just moving on, that's not what the Lord wants. He doesn't want this mission trip in isolation. Well, check that off the list. That would be a complete failure. It's got to be something that like affects every day. And like, I'm still working on that. Like, I'm still waiting on the flashing sign. Like, you gonna give it to me, Lord? Like, I'm trying. But just to continue to take that and to really be prayerful for that. So if ever you don't know what to pray for, because I've been there, I'm like, okay, I'm over it. Like, I don't know what else to pray for the missions. You don't have to be the one necessarily there to pray for it. But you are also on your own mission field, whether it be at Publix or in Zambia. And we can't forget that. And it's easy for me to forget that. Well, I'm just sitting at a desk crunching numbers all day. That's still my mission field, and I have to use it. So that's how I'm bringing it back.
Okay, so I want to share a couple things about the trip, how we move forward. Of course, we're going to do Africa 2025. Is anybody in this group going? If you are, raise your hand. I should tell you something. I've done this for years, and like I said, what means the most is of course loving on the people, but I love to see my team members get touched. I love to see God deal with my team members, as he does with me. So while we were there, and I'm going to share a couple things that we're going to do in 2025, a couple things that were brought to my attention. We talked about the children and everything. Well, there's a school that we went to. In this school, there was quite a few children. I would say it looked like maybe 200 to 300 children. And we spoke with the headmaster, and we asked her. We were the second group ever going there, and she was telling us about all of the changes she's seen in the children since the first group came there. And we were like, oh, that's awesome. Awesome. And then we were like, well, what can we do? What can we do? And she said, well, if we could just figure out a way to keep the elephants from killing the children. And we were like, expand on that, expand. And she said, well, our school is in the migration pattern of the elephant. So every 2 weeks they come through and then they go back. So they come right through our school. And so when the villagers see the elephants coming, somebody runs to the school and says, the elephants are coming. So we immediately release the children to run home. And on their way home, multiple children get killed by the elephants. So I'm sitting there going, no, this can't be. This can't be. So I'm praying while we're there. We're doing our skit and all that, and I'm praying, God, you got to give me a solution for this. There's a solution for this. It's got to be a simple solution. So God says, do you remember when you were in Botswana? Do you remember what kept the elephants from going into the houses, into the resort area? And I was like, oh my gosh. So our plan for this coming year is we're going to buy rebarb over there. With elephants, they don't step on sharp rocks because their bottoms of their feet are very soft. So one of the projects I want to do is we're going to make a safe house in that school. We're going to get rocks and we're going to put rebarb up through those rocks and circle the safe house so that when somebody comes screaming that the elephants are coming, they can take those kids and those teachers into that house and protect them until the elephants are gone. Because the elephants will not go near that house because they will not step on the sharp rocks or the rebar. So that's a project I want to steer, and I'm hoping that, well, I know everybody here is ready to do it. So that's one of the projects I want to see happen. Another project is the villages that we drove 10 miles to through the desert, the bush. When we got back there, it was the first time they had ever had visitors, and I was able and privileged to minister to the men and the women village leaders. So after I spoke, I said, what can we do for you? How can we help you? How can we come alongside you to minister to your villages? And 5 different men raised their hand and said, get us a Bible? And I was like, what? Yeah, I just want, he said, we got 2 Bibles amongst all the villages, and we have to travel from village to village if we want to read the Bible. And he said, I just want a Bible at my house so I can read to my children. And I was like, oh, we're fixing that. We're fixing that. When we come back, we're fixing that. So that's another thing that we're going to head up and we're going to spear, because we're going to get Bibles in their language and we're bringing it to them. So, and then the third thing, and I'm going to say right now, if you're squeamish or if you have kids that you don't want to see a crocodile attack, cover their eyes. So I have a couple pictures I want to show you, and this was sent to me while we were there. They were like, hey man, just want you to know while you were there, somebody was attacked by a crocodile. Let me explain to you why. Because these villages have to walk miles to the Zambezi River to draw their water for the day. So they'll send their kids to the Zambezi River to draw water and carry it back, and that'll last 2 or 3 days, and then they have to go again. Well, these children are being taken by crocodiles. And when I say taken, I mean gone. I mean, they pull them in the water, they're gone, they have to search for their bodies. So while we were there, a crocodile attack happened, and I think they have a picture back there. So this is just a tail whip. One of the kids got close to the water, and this guy saw the crocodile headed towards, so he grabbed the kid, and as he did, the crocodile whipped him with his tail and ripped him open. And this is one of the kids at the well that we were at that they were talking about, we were putting together. Once we got it assembled, this kid ran up to the well. First time he ever had fresh water. Never had fresh water in his life. And so what I want to do is I want Fountain City to come alongside us, and I want to raise money to do it. I did the legwork while I was over there, found out how much. It's expensive. It's $5,000 a well. But if $5,000 saves 20 children's lives, come on. I mean, with a church this size, we can easily come up with that. And I told God, I said, God, if I have to do it, I'll do it myself. I said, we're going to do a well when we go back next year. And God said, no, you're going to do 2 of them. So that's all I had to say.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So we just want to take a few minutes. Sometimes we do this before service starts or like at the very beginning. And so if you haven't been here before, we really do want to operate like a family, and everything they shared is a lot to process. And I know sometimes even me sitting out in the crowd, if we were to do an altar call and say, if you feel called to the nations, come forward, and you're like, I don't know, I need a big, red flashing sign to tell me to come forward, I don't know, And sometimes we just need to process. And so I just want us to be able to take a minute as a family to get in small little clusters, of maybe 4 to 6 people, and just take time. If you feel called to the nations or you're not sure, you're just kind of thinking, maybe, I don't know, I've never thought about this. We don't ever want to see people come in and never at least take a moment to ask God, are you calling me to the nations? Are you calling me to go on one of these trips? Are you calling me to be an entrepreneur, to be someone who helps raise funds for people to go to the nations? Is God calling you to be an intercessor and to just fervently pray for those who are going? Or just to take a moment, even as Lindy shared, to pray for Africa, to pray for Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, these countries that we are long-term in partnership with, to just take moments to pray. And so as you get together, just take a minute. If there's nobody who maybe feels called to the nations or to those things, we at least want to take time to pray for these countries and these places. And so you kind of, as a little family pod this morning, can decide, and process together and kind of talk through some of those points. And so we're just going to give you guys 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We'll dismiss after that. And if you want to keep praying, you can pray. Maybe if you guys really get revved and going as a prayer team, you're welcome to stay a bit longer. Or if you just want to take a few moments to pray over Africa this morning, you can do that as well. And so if you'll just get in little groups, kind of with the people around you, ask them, do you feel called to the nations? Do you feel called to be an entrepreneur or intercessor? And let people kind of process. It's okay to say maybe, I'm not sure, and have people pray over you. Let's encourage one another this morning. So if you guys will just take 5 minutes or so to do that, and then we'll dismiss from there.
Hey, thanks again for listening to this week's sermon. If you felt like the Lord was speaking to you in a specific way, please reach out to us at info@fountaincity.org. We'd love to partner with you in your faith. Thanks again.